Thưa quý vị và các bạn, Vietnam's Lingering Ghost Facing the Legacy of Agent Orange, tiếng Việt tạm dịch là đối mặt với di sản da cam, bóng ma vương vất ở Việt Nam, là một phóng sự tài liệu trong series các phóng sự về các cuộc chiến tranh trên thế giới của công ty truyền thông HDNet của Mỹ.
Để thực hiện được bộ phim này, phóng viên Greg Dobb đã tới Việt Nam để gặp gỡ hàng trăm người tại nhiều vùng miền khác nhau, đặc biệt là các em bé sinh ra sau chiến tranh bị các dị tật bẩm sinh, các bệnh nan y như là thần kinh, ung thư, di chứng của chất độc da cam.
Và kính thưa quý vị, phóng sự điều tra mang lại nhiều khám phá mới, kể cả sự việc chính phủ Mỹ cuối cùng cũng phải nhận trách nhiệm về những thiệt hại mà người Mỹ đã gây ra trong cuộc chiến tranh tại Việt Nam.
Vietnam today. There is a ghost here that you won't immediately see, the last lingering ghost from the war. You won't hear it above the hum of this nation's budding prosperity. You won't spot it in the faces of the people you find on the streets and rice paddies of this country. In fact, from the day we landed here, I was welcomed warmly by everyone I met, including total strangers like these who teased me with a victory sign at a local marketplace. But there is the ghost, the one cruel curse that Vietnam says the U.S. left behind. You won't see it until you come to a place like this and learn the sad story behind the deformities of this young Vietnamese man born 10 years after the war was over, Nguyen Duc Duan. Duan's father, Day, blames his son's birth defects on what happened during the war when American planes flew overhead and sprayed something from the sky.
I saw many airplanes flying, the airplanes flying low. There was something misting from them all over the area. I just thought the airplanes were pretty. I watched them, but I didn't think it was bad chemicals coming from the airplane.
Do you believe because you were sprayed, this happened to your son?
I think I was affected by the chemical. I think that because I am like this, because I was affected by the toxins. That is why my son is like this.
It's also hard to believe there was a war here until you meet this 28-year-old man, also born after the war was over, named Nguyen Ngoc Phuong, who is not quite 3 feet 3 inches tall.
Previously, my dad used to be in the Army, and he was affected by Agent Orange. And when I was born, I was like this. There are 2 of us in our family who are like this. In our house, my mom and dad gave birth to 6 children. Me and 1 younger sister have got defective legs. She is also as small as me.
And all these years after the war, they blame it on Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a herbicide we sprayed during the war, named for the color-coded barrels in which it was stored. American aircraft dropped more than 20 million gallons of herbicides, mostly Agent Orange, over large portions of the jungle, in concentrations up to 50 times what the manufacturers suggested to kill plants. In some provinces, people here remember, half the land was stripped bare. But that was the purpose, to defoliate the trees and make it easier to see the enemy sneaking south, to deprive him of his sanctuary. The trouble is, some science and statistics suggest it wasn't just bad for the trees. Plenty of people breathed it. Others ate and drank from sources contaminated by it. The issue and the challenge for the U.S. and Vietnam is it might still be contaminating people here to this day. Agent Orange has been called the last lingering ghost of the war.
The Vietnamese were purposefully targeted by Agent Orange. The American soldiers were either spraying the Agent Orange or came into that area afterwards, and as a result, the Vietnamese are the ones most affected by it.
Dr. Nguyen Trong Nhan is a former Minister of Health in Vietnam and former president of the Vietnamese Red Cross. It's not as if he's a strident critic of all things American. He proudly displays a photograph of a meeting he once had with President Clinton and earnestly keeps a miniature Statue of Liberty close to his desk. What does this mean to you?
I respect American people because American people respect the freedom and to have a life happiness.
But Dr. Nhan wants the United States to own up to the unhappiness that his government says we created with Agent Orange.
It has harmful effects on the environment and human health. That is a reality. That's a crime that has happened in Vietnam.
The United States, when it was spraying, says they did not know it would hurt human beings. They just did it to get rid of the jungle.
Now, for the people that have committed that crime, of course, it's very difficult to accept something that's your fault.
Strong language to use, but here's why. Because a byproduct of the chemicals mixed together to make the herbicide to kill the trees was dioxin. Now banned around the world because of the damage it does to the human body, dioxin is called one of the most toxic, deadly, and stubbornly resistant poisons known to man. There's no disagreement that the United States brought the toxic herbicide into this country, but still today, more than 35 years after the end of the war, there is major disagreement about what human harm it really caused and whether the U.S. should, as Vietnam demands, take responsibility. The Vietnamese say one fact is undeniable. In the nearly 50 years now since the United States first sprayed Agent Orange here, the population in parts of Vietnam where Agent Orange was used has been plagued by deformities, cancers, severe levels of retardation. And now, so long after the war, the same frightful afflictions today keep cropping up. How many victims do you believe there are?
We estimate that there are 3 million citizens. That is the estimate that we have relied on because it has been reaffirmed by an American university.
Actually, the American research done by Columbia University for the U.S. government's own Institute of Medicine says that some 3,000 Vietnamese villages were sprayed, which could affect between 2 and 4 million people. However many there really are, the casualties Vietnam blames on Agent Orange are not just confined to small corners of the country. We traveled to urban and rural sites, north and south, to see the people who still believe they are fighting the last battle of the war. The therapeutic centers we visited are a living demonstration of that fight. They are for children with mental or physical birth defects that Vietnam attributes to Agent Orange. This is Long Hu Ni, in English, Friendship Village near Hanoi. It was established only about a decade ago by an American veteran of the war. There are 120 kids here now with all manner of disabilities, physical and mental. They come from parts of Vietnam where Agent Orange was sprayed decades before they were even born. Then there's this center in Da Nang, established by a group called DAVA, the Da Nang Association for Victims of Agent Orange. It's very close to a former U.S. air base, now a commercial airport, where Agent Orange was stored and mixed and loaded onto aircraft. And it's where we met Nguyen Ngoc Phuong, the diminutive man with the deformed chest.
My body is compacted. It pushes against my heart and it's hard to breathe. At night, when I sleep, if I lean back, it presses against my lungs. So when I sleep, I have to sleep face down. If I lie on my back, I can't breathe.
We also wanted to get a sense of the Agent Orange issue outside the cities, so we came here to the rural province of Quang Ngai. Today it seems pastoral if impoverished, but back when the war was fought, Quang Ngai was a haven for the enemy, for Viet Cong soldiers, and therefore one of the most heavily sprayed parts of the country. Vietnam classifies 15,000 people in this province alone as victims of Agent Orange. Today, victims of a grave genetic inheritance. We met young people here who might have been affected two ways: the Agent Orange that the U.S. unloaded on their parents, who could have directly inhaled it when they were fighting for the enemy, or the Agent Orange that was unloaded on their land.